everyone, and welcome to today's webinar hosted by Ciphr, Portfolio Group and CIPP. It's great to have you with us this afternoon as we're talking about the future of AI in payroll. I'm joined by Julie, who's our MD of Payroll here at Ciphr. Welcome, Julie. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Catherine. Happy to be here today. Excited to talk all things AI.
Fabulous. And we also have Adrian, Commercial Director at CIPP. Welcome, Adrian. How are you doing?
Good, and keeping quite well, actually. And yeah, definitely looking forward to this topic. That's quite a hot topic in the payroll industry right now.
Certainly is, judging by the number of people who are on the call with us, which has just hit 200. I was going to say 2,000. 200. It's great to have you with us anyway. And Gemma, welcome to you. You're the Director of the Permanent Division at the Portfolio Group. Welcome. How are you doing?
Yeah, well, good. Thank you. Looking forward to it. It's my first webinar, so very excited.
Amazing. I won't keep you guys too long with the introductions up top, so we'll just run through a little bit about Ciphr in case you're new to us before I hand over to Julie, Adrian and Gemma, who'll be discussing topics such as myths about AI, is all AI the same, how will we use AI in payroll, the challenges of using AI specifically in the payroll arena, what AI means for the future of payroll skills and teams. So it's going to be really discussion based, but we do want to hear from you as well. So please say hi in the chat. Feel free to share how you're using AI or not, whether that's for payroll, for other productivity hacks in your life, or just messing around with it to see what happens, basically. This webinar is being recorded and the recording will be emailed to you afterwards. So if you want to rewatch any of it or send the recording to a friend or colleague, you can absolutely do that later on. So a little bit about Ciphr here. This is what we offer. It's everything in the people management arena, really, from HR software through to payroll software, payroll bureau, as well as benefits. We offer e-learning content and LMS, as well as diversity, equality, inclusion, and belonging consultancy services. So we won't be going into any of our products and services today, but we would love to talk to you about it if you're interested in it. You can reach us at info@ciphr.com, or you can visit our website, which is ciphr.com. So I'm going to invite Gemma, please, if you could share a little bit about Portfolio Group for us. Thanks.
Okay, nice to meet everybody. So Portfolio Payroll, we are the market leader and longest established recruitment agency specialising solely in the recruitment of payroll professionals. We have got a giant, enormous database across all of the UK, and in the last couple of years we've launched internationally, and we are now over in Toronto as well, working very closely with the MPI like we do the CIPP over in the UK. I manage the permanent division, which consists of 8 of us. We have a temporary team and we mirror the same up into the Manchester office as well.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Adrian Goddard. Was mentioned earlier, Commercial Director at the CIPP. I'm sure many of you will already be aware of the CIPP, but just wanted to be clear and illustrate to you how we are represented here. So very much payroll at the core of everything that we do in how we lead the profession and support payroll, pension and reward professionals. And what you can see illustrated on the screen here are the 6 key areas of the Institute as to how we support, equip, educate, recognize, and really enable payroll professionals to be at the forefront of the profession, to help to influence and shape the profession, to be equipped to be as effective as possible within their roles, and also to support their career trajectory as well.
Thanks, Adrian. So this is a little bit of an interactive session now for all the participants and attendees today. So at recent events, Adrian, Gemma and I have been at, where we've been talking about AI in payroll, the reaction is kind of from one extreme to the other on confidence. So if you wouldn't mind just joining this little poll now, we'd love to hear from you on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 not being confident, 5 being extremely confident. You know, how do you feel about using AI in payroll right now? And there's no right or wrong answer, but if you wouldn't mind just completing the poll, that'd be great. Thank you.
What's really interesting is when we've done these in person, there's been more people on the more nervous end of the scale to begin with. And then by the time of the end of the session, everyone's got a little bit warmer, a little bit more hotter towards the topic.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's the same kind of thing that we see today as we conclude the discussion later.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think, you know, if people kind of use AI or work for a tech company, you're pretty much comfortable with the concept. I think if AI is not in your life right now, this can be really daunting. And as I say, there's no right or wrong answer.
I think what was quite interesting from those roundtable discussions, though, was though a lot of people had a view and opinion and perception on AI, very, very few of them were actually actively using it.
Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah. And it is. And you know, you can go from kind of one extreme to another, can't you? Where people are, if AI gets into payroll, that's it, it's going to take over our jobs, which isn't the case, everybody. To, you know, I just don't want anything in the product that's going to make a decision that I would make because it's payroll. So that's really interesting. I just want to do a bit of a time check with Catherine, how long we've got left for the poll to close.
It's closed. We're ready to go.
Oh, let's do this then. Let's have a look at the results, please.
So the results should be on your screen, I hope. Oh, wait, no, I need to press a button. Right, now try now. So much AO. So the results that I can see are 37% of people said 1, not at all confident, 23% rated themselves 2, 30% said level 3, so sort of medium confidence level, 7% said 4, and just 2%, the 5 chosen few, are extremely confident about using AI in payroll. So it's going to be super interesting to see what the results look like towards the end of the broadcast.
Yeah, and interestingly, that is very similar. So we've done what we're doing today on the webinar. We actually did in a live roadshow, and very similar results, weren't they?
Yeah,
so
very
yeah,
similar.
We are going to take a temperature check at the end of this session once we've kind of gone through this education piece, just to see how you feel later on. But thank you for participating, everybody. That's great.
Thanks so much. Okie dokie. So, Julie, over to you. Let's debunk some myths.
Okay, so at a round table we were all at last year, which kicked off this piece of work that we're collaborating on, and we were talking about AI in payroll, and you could literally split the room in half with those that were comfortable with starting to go on that journey and those that were really frightened by it, you know, with commentary like, I'll retire before I use AI in a payroll system. And I think the one that kind of captured the sentiment of those that were feared when somebody said, I've seen iRobot, there's not a chance we're putting AI into our payroll solution. So what we want to do today is just kind of share with you what AI is, how it could possibly work in payroll. And again, there's no right or wrong answer to how you feel about it, but education's at the heart of what we needed to achieve. So just to debunk some facts, AI, when used in a payroll solution, doesn't leave your payroll system. So it can't get exposed to the internet, to the World Wide Web. It just stays within the software. The way I kind of look at it is, it's just another technology tool that we can use to create features in payroll software. And I've never been asked in my career when we've designed things and put new features in payroll, you know, what tooling have you used, Julie, to make that happen? No one's ever asked me that before. So now with AI, because it's used so widely across the world, and in some cases in not a great way, I understand why there's a fear factor on it, but I can assure you, when people develop anything using AI technology in payroll software, it never leaves the solution. One of the other things that we hear often is a fear that AI will take your job. That isn't the case. We are always going to need payroll professionals who understand compliance and regulation, who understand what employers can and can't do when they're writing their own terms and conditions in employee contracts. That's never going to go away. But what it will do is change your job. It's going to enhance how you operate and work. It's going to make life easier for you. Yeah.
Sorry if I could on that one. So I was reflecting on this, and I thought I do really love the term co-pilot. and I know that there's an AI solution Copilot. I'm not plugging the AI solution Copilot, but just the concept of Copilot, that as a payroll professional, you are the pilot, you are the one driving the payroll, right? But you've got the Copilot that is also assisting and working with you. It's not taking the reins as the pilot. It is just supporting and operating with you as a co-pilot.
That's it. That's exactly what it's doing. And we've kind of, you know, we're the technical term that we refer to in AI are agents. So I think of agents as like mini administrators, where they're doing some of the real heavy, time-consuming, repetitive, sometimes mundane tasks, but they're doing them at a much quicker speed than a human could, and with far more leverage. They're able to find more data points that need to be assessed. So yeah, if you hear me talk about agents, they're just think of them as like people, basically. But look, ultimately, it's going to make payroll more accurate, and it will free up time, and that time then can get invested back in quality of the payroll output and accuracy, financial well-being. This is a big one that comes up at most events, isn't it? People would love to do more for their employees and colleagues around financial well-being, but they don't get the time.
Yep. I think it's worth noting that across the kind of the payroll recruitment landscape, there isn't a lot of noise about it taking jobs or worrying about that in the future. So I think that's definitely something to mention at this stage. Yeah,
thank you. And one of the things that I'm very passionate about is the level of data that payroll holds can provide real insights at board level. But in order to find the time to provide that information and serve that up in a board pack and contribute to the content of a board meeting, you need the time to invest in getting that data sorted and right. Again, one, you can use AI to help with that, but two, with what we're going to show you today and what you're going to learn today is if we can get rid of these time-consuming, repetitive administration tasks and hand them over to AI agents, that frees up your time to be even more supportive for your board. That's kind of the plan.
All right, awesome. So, I've got a thought on this in that, can we trust AI? Is it secure? All right. Now, when I think of AI, I still remember now the first time there was the whole noise and hype around ChatGPT. Everyone's talking about what is this ChatGPT thing, right? And it now seems more normal because a lot more people have taken it on board. But for many people, that is a fundamental reference point as to what AI actually looks like, that you're inputting information, and hopefully not sensitive information, but you're inputting information into this, AI machine, and the data is being sent somewhere where it's not actually secure. You do not have confidence that information is being protected. And I feel that, especially from conversations that we've been having with many professionals in the industry, that potentially that mindset may be translated into what it could look like within a payroll solution, and whether there are those guardrails and those protective measures in place so that data and information as sensitive as payroll can be secure, and we as payroll professionals can have that level of confidence about it. So, question to you, Julie, can we trust AI and is it secure?
Okay, so we can trust the people who are leveraging AI functionality to build functions within payroll software. With regard to security of the data, 100% we can trust that. We're never going to build in payroll systems. We're never going to build AI features that will then expose data out to the internet. We're just never going to do that. So yes, we can trust that. The best way to think about it really is if your payroll provider did a software release and in there was a new feature, and you thought, oh great, I'm going to use that new feature. You'd never really think, oh, but if I use that new feature, can that data escape from payroll? It's the same with AI, it can't escape. You know, you've got a wrapper, a security wrapper around your product. And so please don't be worried that that can happen, because that's not the case.
All right, brilliant. So why don't we look at different forms of AI then, and ask the question, is all AI the same?
Definitely not all the same. There's different varieties of AI, and to try and help people understand this, I've kind of put it in a real simplistic kind of way of explaining. So we start with the first one, which is predictive AI. So basically, predictive AI just takes masses of historical data, so think payroll data now, and then it structures it in a way that readies itself for being analysed. And then it uses its AI algorithms to detect things like patterns, enabling it to predict future events, future trends. So if you think about all the time that some payroll teams have to spend trying to figure out how much additional resource we need in peak periods within an organisation, so perhaps in retail, Christmas and summer holidays, etc. Predictive AI's got that. If it's got enough historical data, it's going to be able to figure that out. The next type of AI is robotic processing automation. This is around taking those big manual repetitive tasks that we do in payroll all the time, like copying and pasting of data, moving data files, you know, so extracting data out of payroll to send it somewhere to then be uploaded into maybe a finance system, for example, or generating and distributing reports, which is something that most payroll people do on a pay period basis. Then we've got machine learning. So machine learning builds systems that it can learn from. And once it learns from them, it can then make decisions, predictions, and it's great at identifying patterns, which is great in payroll when you're looking for potential errors. Then you've got generative AI. So generative AI creates realistic data like presentations, documents. I don't know if you guys have ever gone to ChatGPT to ask for a bit of help when you're building a presentation or writing an article. That's where generative AI kicks in. I don't know why I can't say generative AI today.
On that note, Julie, that's where I've seen a lot of AI on CVs. And updates on CV. So it's very interesting that we're kind of seeing that trend. And what's funny actually is you can kind of see the pre and post AI update. So whereas, you know, CV read very much in one way, the creativity and you know, just how much it's embellished from the update since AI has been a thing. Yeah, that's a little bit common on CVs at the moment, interestingly.
That is really interesting. And do you ever get real similarities then if people are asking kind of the same questions when they're to ChatGPT when they're updating the CVs?
Yeah, there is, and also some American spellings of things as well. Interesting. So you can always pick out that, which is quite funny. So we have to kind of go back and then you know, sort that out type thing. But it is quite funny. But I get it. It's, you know, it's sometimes you're not always feeling that creative. You need a different way of saying things. So
yeah, absolutely.
I think you're right about just what you were saying there about spelling, Gemma. I think in using AI for some time now, there are some tells, like just it has its own tone and it has its own way of creating things. And actually you can, if you use it enough, you could probably identify that this was written by AI, or at least there has been some assistance.
Yeah, and also on adverts, funnily enough, and that is super useful. You know, often, you know, the content of a payroll say advert, it can be quite similar. So in that sense, that's really useful, because it can, you know, kind of, I guess, reduce and eliminate ironically the robotiness or something. But that's kind of another way we've seen it, to be fair.
And do you use it then when you're creating your adverts?
Do you know what? Actually, despite the fact I'm on this, no, I don't. No, I'm still very new to AI myself, to be honest with you. So it was only recently that I got ChatGPT. You know, had a bit of play around with that. It's quite fun. But now I'm a bit of a newbie to it all, to be fair.
We've all got to start somewhere, right?
We have indeed, yeah.
Okay, so what did I want to talk about next? Natural language processing. This is a real interesting one. So this enables us to focus on the interaction between basically computers and people, generating responses through AI in text or in language, so in speak. And it can also translate from one language to another. If you think about when you're using Siri, same thing, or just ask if you're on holiday and you just want to ask, can you convert this into, I don't know, French, Spanish, or whatever. That is that technology. So what you might find is we're using a lot of this in our day-to-day lives. We just don't really know that we are. But then when it comes to payroll, we've got to take it a little bit more seriously because, we're traditionally, we're reliant on people and payroll software, and payroll software is designed by payroll experts. Well, AI features in payroll is also being designed by payroll experts. So hopefully that puts people's minds at ease as well. So if we take a look at then how AI will be used in payroll, so we can talk about, that this is what the industry is currently focused on at the moment. And I keep being asked, is AI here to stay? It's not new, and absolutely it is here to stay in kind of every aspect of technology.
I think just before you move on, Julie, as well,
yeah.
I think it's worth considering that irrespective of how, an individual might feel about AI, the fact of the matter is that at some point in time, we are going to have to accommodate it. It's the same thing as to when we moved from using an abacus in payroll to calculators, or moving from calculators to computers with Excel, and then, moving from paper filing to online filing, and, to annual returns to RTI, and all the various changes and milestone transitions that we've seen within the payroll industry. I think artificial intelligence is one whereby, even if you don't want to adopt it right now, it's wise to just gain insights, gain understanding, start to expose oneself to it, and if anything, get at the forefront of it, so that when it does become fundamental to your role and your operation and organization, you are fully prepared, you have the insights that you need, and you're equipped to be able to show up and rise to the occasion for what is required of you. The worst thing an individual can do is really ignore it and get left behind and not be equipped to tackle how the industry is reshaping.
It's interesting you say that, because that's the payroll professional's view, which is absolutely spot on, by the way, but I'll give you the lens of a software provider now, because it's identical just from a business perspective. So if you're a payroll provider, we think about things like when cloud technology first came in. If you haven't adopted cloud technology, you're not going to be in business in a few years' time, because nobody wants on-prem solutions anymore because of cybersecurity. So the industry has to move on. So when cloud first came out, we all looked at this and went, okay, we need to jump on this pretty quick because this is here to stay. AI is the same. We jump on it pretty quick because it is here to stay. We know it's here to stay. And what will happen is, eventually people will, once they get comfortable using AI in payroll, won't want systems that don't have agents embedded within the product that can help them with what we're about to come on to and talk about now, how we utilize it.
There'll be a time in the future whereby it becomes abnormal to not use AI as your co-pilot, driving your payroll. Yeah,
exactly. That's where we're heading. And some things are not in our control, and this is one of them. A bit like when cloud came out, so you embrace it. Yeah.
Just to bring up one of the discussions that we had when we had the AI Roadshow, there was a payroll manager there, and we talk about using AI in payroll, but rather than the actual processing side, what she did when she had new starters and new members of her team, when she was talking about procedures and processes and that sort of thing, she needed these guys to follow. She put it into ChatGPT, and it created this for her, immediately eliminating that time that she would have had to have quite physically had to type it out, etc. So while she's not using it to actually create the output of payroll, it was supporting her day to day to allow her to do that. So you might be using it without necessarily realizing it and understanding actually how useful it's going to be.
Yeah. Well, let's take a look at how useful it's going to be, because this is quite interesting and eye-opening. So if we take a look first off at predictive AI, here's how it can help. So we talked about, it builds up masses of data, and then it formats that data in such a way that it can read historically, and then it can start doing things like looking at live payroll. So when you're running your current month's payroll, it's going to be detecting things like fraudulent patterns. It's very easily going to be able to identify if there's a kind of a one-off thing happening, or if there's something happening on one pay slip that doesn't ever happen anywhere else. It's going to be able to identify these things and serve them up to the payroll professionals to go and take a look at. It's going to be able to do the forecasts for labour requirements, which if you're doing that manually, and I've done that manually myself in a previous life, it is horrendous and super time consuming. It can do all that for you. It will identify unusual payments. So if you think about tracking somebody's average overtime, and then all of a sudden there's a big spike, but it's not anywhere else, it's going to be able to serve up, this just doesn't look quite right, take a look. It might be that it's okay, and it is just a one-off event. But rather than a human having to go through, a lengthy variance report and possibly missing something like that, that's where it's going to come in useful. And it also will do things like identify duplicate bank details. I talk to payroll professionals, so we have a report that will serve any multiple occurrences of the same bank details. Some professionals, but that still requires somebody to go and review and analyse that. So some payroll people I talk to, they have to extract data, put it into a CSV, convert it to CSV, do a VLOOKUP. And that again is time consuming. AI is just going to tell you if that's happening. Then if we look at RPA, so if we think about manual entry of data into payroll, uploading CSV files into payroll, or passing information in or out of the payroll system through APIs. APIs, we can fully automate and schedule, but if you've got to get data in order for the API to then kind of pick that information up and perhaps pass it out to finance, RPA is going to take care of all of that, and it's all scheduled as well. So basically you can go from humans having to pass data or input data to fully automating that. We can also schedule the sending of payroll files. So, perhaps if you have to send one out to, HR, if you've got a separate HR system, finance, we always have to pass data to finance. RPA can do that automatically. And also things like scheduling and sending payroll reports to people around the business. That's super common for most organisations. Again, we can just get rid of the manual requirement in there and automatically schedule those. Very handy. Then machine learning. So this can help us particularly around variance reports. And, I'll just kind of touch on a real live example where I had a friend of mine in the payroll profession come to me and say, I've just discovered that we've been overpaying somebody £800 thereabouts for 4 years. And how can I recover this money because they've resigned now that we've identified the error? And then they followed it up with, I don't understand why we didn't detect it. Well, variance reports look at what happened last period to what happened this period. the first payment that employee received was accurate, but it should have been input as a one-off payment, and it wasn't. It was input as a permanent payment. So of course, when you get to the variance report the second month, it's not showing a variance. But if you're using machine learning, what machine learning would do is detect, you never normally pay this payment twice in a run. Are you sure it's okay? And that would have prevented it. Yes, it'd have been one overpayment, but better that than 4 years worth of uncoverable money. So that's how that's quite useful.
It's a costly mistake, that.
It is. Hey, but we're only human, you know.
Yeah.
And mistakes do unfortunately happen. So it can also do things like look at anomalies on your RTI files, your BACS files, any patterns in your reports, so it can read all your normal payroll reports that you run and just identify if something looks different and serve that up. And ultimately, all of that makes your payroll more accurate. Then we've got generative AI in payroll. So this one is quite controversial. You'll either kind of Marmite this one, you'll love it or hate it, but we can use generative AI to communicate with employees and do things like educate them on the payslip, even answer payslip queries. That one never goes down well, and it's probably one for way in the future, but it can. Also, what we can do is create communication. So whenever you need to communicate out to your colleagues from payroll, those communications can be created within generative AI. And what we do internally at Ciphr is we have a little agent called Tony, and he's our tone of voice. I used him this morning, actually. Gosh, I was sat there this morning. It took me about 20 minutes to construct an email, which, by the way, was one paragraph to a customer. And in the end, I kind of gave up and I went, here's the sentiment of what I'm trying to say. And within a second, it had written me this beautiful email, but it was in our tone of voice, the way we like to speak and communicate out to our colleagues or customers.
I think that's a great example of that, you know, Julie, because I think at times what's overlooked within the payroll profession is the emotive side of it, and the empathy and compassion that is also required when you're dealing with something as sensitive as somebody's pay. And I think, you know, it can be quite challenging, especially in written communication, because it can be so easily misinterpreted. So to have some kind of support like that with AI to ensure that, you know, it can almost sense check how you are communicating to individuals. I do the same, you know, if I'm sending something to somebody, more so like people that I'm working with, or maybe my reports or whoever it may well be, and it's something that potentially might provoke emotion, you know, I'll at times just get AI to sense check it. And you know, at times it does revise it, maybe soften it a little bit or tweak it and adjust it. But it's just giving you that extra confidence that you're communicating in the most effective way.
Completely.
Here, you know, somebody was upset because they misinterpreted a text or an email. You know, lost in translation. Yeah, and these tools can really help us prevent us from doing that. You know, some of us have stronger skill sets than others on written communication, but the tools are here to help.
I think the tricky part with this, and this is, again, if I go back to the kind of co-pilot analogy, is that if we at some point in time make AI the pilot when it comes to these kinds of communications, and the potential, the risk that there could be with that in it communicating to employees, again, about sensitive matters to do with their pay. And though we maybe get to a point in time whereby this is adopted by organizations to enable AI to manage those kinds of communications, I think we just need to be eyes wide open about the implications of that, and whether that is right for the staff in the workforce, and whether there needs to be any oversight or guardrails, you know, from the payroll professionals that are responsible for that solution.
100%. And you know, when you're developing anything like AI features in payroll, you don't do it on your own because you think you know best. So, you know, good software suppliers will have tags like, you know, client advisory groups, where we talk about, you know, what is the desirable here. And you always start small. I mean, you know, getting to the point where you've got AI answering payroll queries, we're way off that. We're, you know, that's way into the future. And you'd start small on stuff like that. You'd govern it with just answer a query about a tax code, because you can teach it all about a tax code very quickly just by serving up the data. You wouldn't necessarily say, hey, let everybody ask any payroll query that they want, and, you know, have a stab. have a stab at answering it. Doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. You know, and it's going to take a lot of training and a lot of historical data feed to get to a point where we'd even get comfortable with testing it. You know. Okay, and then how we'd use natural language processing. So chatbots to answer payroll queries, and this is the one that had, I think, the most allergic reaction in our research. And I do understand this as a payroll professional, you know, and a bit of a control freak when it comes to things like, you know, your data accuracy, and because you never want to misinform an employee, do you? So yes, it's important. You could start off with the very simple of things like, I don't know where to find my national insurance number, or what's my national insurance number. Just let employees ask some simple things, and then hand off to a payroll professional for any of the wider queries. But where it's really cool is enabling employees to interact directly with the payslip, because we're really bad in this country at teaching, at school level, teaching kids how to understand tax, national insurance, and any other types of deductions. We haven't got it right in the UK.
Sorry, just to cut in there, Julie, we had a client that actually uses that as part of their AI tool across their business, and that's probably, you know, when asked for feedback, that is the one that's off the scale. The people love it, hovering it over, understanding it, and even if you haven't really got a question about it, your curiosity is going to make you go to them and think, actually, why is that number that, or why has that happened? So it's you're educating them without them realizing it at the same time.
Exactly, and you know, and again, everything's controlled.
Yep.
You know, so you can control what you want it to be able to interact with your employees with. It's not just going to literally take a mind, and this is what people think, it'll take a mind of its own and just start trying to answer things that it's not trained to do. It kind of doesn't work that way. But it can also explain things like changes. So the amount of times that you get calls from employees, particularly in April, saying, you know, I've got the same salary, but why is my net pay less? Well, guess what? Your tax code's changed, and, you know, national insurance has gone up, whatever it might be. All those questions could be answered through NLP. And a really cool feature is being able to communicate your pay slip and handle queries in different languages. And so I think, Gemma, I know we've talked a few times where you'll get job adverts in where, I think, what was the one that you had last week? Was it Danish? Was it
Danish? Forever French speaking, German speaking. So anything to help with that will be enormous for individuals. So as I say, not replacing, there is a level of, how much do I use it, but just the prompts and just that kind of being able to get you over that first hurdle is really invaluable.
Yeah. So I think that, that's useful for most organisations. We are a fantastically multicultural country, yep. and I think that just helps employees. I think it must be quite hard when you start working in a different country to understand the tax rules. They probably don't even know what national insurance is, because it was called something completely different, perhaps in France or wherever. But we can use NLP to help bridge those queries as well. So that's really kind of where we use it at the moment in payroll. But it'd be quite interesting, Adrian, to take your what's your opinion on AI helping with compliance? Does it help? Does it complicate?
I think it's inevitable that AI, to whatever extent, is also going to support, payroll professionals with compliance. I think what we have to be careful of is how we perceive AI and how much we elevate it, in that we do not see AI as the authority, for example, when it comes to compliance. And we have to be very careful, because you also have to ensure that you do your own due diligence. And even working with institutes like ourselves as the Chartered Institute, to ensure that you have the correct and thorough understanding of compliance. I give an example. I did some research, some market research, using AI not too long ago, just a couple of months ago, and it gave me information about 10 different organizations that I wanted to research. But when I then delved deeper and I looked into all of those organizations, 2 of them in particular, it actually created itself and it made up, and I couldn't find it anywhere online. It was like, these organizations don't actually exist. But for whatever lever it has pulled on for its information, it has manifested something that isn't actually reality. I think that's a good example in the sense of, if it's pulling on levers of information to do with compliance that's required for organizations to adhere to, you've got to be careful that it's interpreted it in the right way, that it hasn't created things or added information that isn't actually required for you to be compliant, that it can actually be able to, tailor its responses to what's going on within your specific situation to enable you to be compliant. And that's why we've just got to be careful about not making it the authority, because that's when we can get into a dangerous place, and rather rely on, organizations like ourselves to be able to support professionals to do the right thing and protect the organizations that they work for and their staff.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very valid point. And with regards to owning the decision whether you use AI or not, I think it's worth noting, just like any other feature that we put in payroll that's not a compliance or regulation rule, you choose as a user whether you use it or not. So
good point.
Yeah, so for example, if you put a new feature in payroll that let you have an interactive payslip, you didn't want to use that, you just continue with your current payslips. So you've always got the control over what you do use and don't use. And for me, it's things like, if we were going to use AI for the variance report, with my payroll head on, I'd still be running my old variance report as well. And then I'd be, just till I could kind of get comfortable with using it, and a lot of thought in when you're designing these features, a lot of thought goes into kind of the onboarding, because this is new world, new experience.
That's a great point, and I think the fundamental of that is that the adoption of AI cannot therefore enable us to relinquish due diligence, making sure that things are accurate and correct. If you rely too much on it, that's when we can get into difficult position. And again, we're managing the most sensitive, one of the more, if not the most sensitive thing for an employee within an organization. It can literally be the making or breaking of a staff member, and if it's wrong, it can cause somebody to leave, do reputable damage. So we've just got to make sure that we've done our checks and balances, crossed our T's, dotted our I's, as AI is assisting us within payroll.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. It is an assistant. It's not going to do your payroll for you. It's there to assist, But with regard to kind of, what should you expect your payroll vendor to be doing about AI? There is a race right now in the payroll software space around utilisation of AI, just because we can see so many benefits from it. So I'd have a chat with your vendor, get involved, get on their client advisory group around AI, get your voice heard. That would be my advice. Okay, and then moving on to kind of with the introduction of AI, what does this do to the skill set requirement of a payroll professional and of the teams? So I'm just going to pose a few questions, if you don't mind, guys. So I'll start with you, Gemma. What skills are employers starting to hire for now in payroll professionals?
Do you know what? Interestingly, we're not actually seeing it feature on job descriptions. So, for example, alongside the core ones they're after, it's never really its own entity, its own requirement when it comes to sourcing. And I think at this stage across the recruitment piece, it's not necessarily a technical skill set right now. It's more about the softer skills. So have people got an interest in that? Are they willing to adapt to change very quickly? Have they got an appetite to understand how that how it could help them? It's more that side of things, and actually, right, tell me how you use AI. Have you implemented an AI attachment, etc. So and I guess the more people we talk about it, the more education there is around it, naturally there's going to be more people that will want to get involved in that, and ultimately there will be, I suspect, some sort of career path down that. What that would look like, it's hard to say right now, but as you say, it's not going anywhere, and for somebody that's got that genuine interest, then yeah, absolutely, it's going to be huge.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I can see a potential for change in is level entry into payroll.
Yep.
We hear all the time that people fell into payroll, etc. And I know, Adrian, you're on a mission around, introducing payroll as a profession for, level entry workers. So all of a sudden, we're opening up the net to software engineers, who have a real interest in AI. So it's a whole new kind of target market to bring into the payroll industry. So I don't know how that's going to pan out. I'm quite interested to see what happens there.
Do you know, it'd be quite nice to speak to a candidate and say, so yeah, how did you get into payroll? I chose it. I took this path. This is what I did. Because that never happens. I say rarely, never.
And then to help with training, Adrian, what are CIPP doing to help the education of payroll professionals in AI?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is, fundamental to how we support the profession moving forward. And that's why the middle of April, it was the 18th of April, we basically released our new payroll management diploma. And one of that's a diploma that's a 14 to 15 month level 5 qualification. And out of the 5 modules that a student will go through, one of the core modules is all about AI and payroll robotics, and literally everything and more for what we've covered today. You actually learn about that as a payroll professional. You learn about how you are practically applying good AI practices within your profession. Also educating you on how you can make yourself as a payroll professional, more strategic within the workplace, to be able to enhance your impact, to be able to support payrollers in the evolution of what our profession is going to look like. So yeah, education is a fundamental way. And in addition to that, just supporting exposure within the industry as to what vendors, and suppliers are doing when it comes to AI, and positioning and building that awareness and sharing, what the latest functionality and various things look like as to how it can support organizations and how they move forward. So yeah, we're all over it, and there's a lot more to come.
Really interesting. It's great to see that you're getting ahead of this, which for the audience is another kind of indicator of this is kind of here to stay. So we all need to find our own way of being able to get comfortable with this.
I'd even say as well, even in the execution, as to how we're further developing, how we're educating payroll professionals. So for example, Payroll Quick Learn that we just released in March, which is basically interactive bite-sized courses for developing payroll professionals. We actually use AI within the solution to basically help support the education of the individual. So again, it's just becoming more encompassing for all of us that it needs to be a part of our general practices and how we grow as payroll professionals.
And payroll's no different. I think that's the thing, isn't it? We're all using these tools in different areas of our business. The payroll department's no different. It's just scarier because we're dealing with payroll, right? Hence why we need sessions like this to kind of hopefully, debunk some of the fears. And with regard to kind of how we can prepare then for AI coming down the line, what's your views on that, Adrian?
I think again, just being motivated to get at the forefront of it. I think if an individual postures themselves like that, being open-minded about it, there's no point shutting the door to the concept of AI. I think if anything, it will be more detrimental to you as an individual and to your career and to your own personal development. I think just having a healthy level of curiosity and testing the waters, even if you just try initially personally with try your ChatGPT or whatever AI solution you want to play around with, let's say, and just develop a level of familiarity, and then I guess explore how you may be able to leverage such solutions within your own organization, within your own payroll function. And it might be as simple as what you mentioned earlier, Julie, in that you might use it to just support your tone of voice when you're communicating something sensitive. It could be minimal, but just make those steps forward, because that's the direction of travel, and unfortunately we can't avoid it.
Agreed. Thank you for that. So just to recap, so AI, it's just computer science. It's not going to take over and start sharing payroll information on the World Wide Web, because it's built within the software. It's not going to replace payroll professionals, but it absolutely will help you 100%. So to the audience, is Catherine, are you able to provide us with another temperature check, please? What I'd love to understand is from 1 to 5, just like we did at the beginning of the session, going from not at all confident to very confident. How do you now feel about the concept of AI in payroll?
The more we talk about it, the more excited you get about it, I think.
Yeah, because you kind of your nerves are kind of disappearing, aren't they? Once you understand what it is, because normally when you hear about AI in the news, it's bad news.
Always bad news.
Yeah, and it gets a bad press, but there's good and bad in everything, No,
completely.
You know what? I'm really looking at some of these results from the poll. Do you know what? I'm so super pleased the fact that overall it's more positive than what it was at the start of this session. So, we really hope that this was a help to everybody who sat on here and listened today, and it's really supporting, equipping you for what you need to do moving forward.
Look at that. We've gone from 8. Oh, sorry.
I was going to do the same thing you're about to do, Julie.
Yeah, no, you go for it.
So are not confident at all people who voted number 1, we've moved from 37% at the start of the broadcast to just 8% now. Level 2, that's gone down from 23 to 16, but we now have a lot more people sort of on the middle ground. That's the choosing number 3 has gone from 30 to 43%. The level 4s has gone way up from 7% to 30%, and we've had 2 people join the cohort of extremely confident folk right up there giving a level 5. So it's a really great comparison to see that comfort levels can increase in just an hour's worth of discussion and information. It's like with so many things that if you don't understand it, it's really natural to feel scared of it a little bit. But once you start having open discussions with people who are sharing your fears, anxieties, hopes and dreams for it, then you start to become more comfortable with things.
Yeah, I love
that result's awesome.
Well, that is brilliant. Well done, everybody that's in the webinar. That's brilliant to see.
Great.
And well done, Julie, Adrian, and Gemma, for getting through so much content. So we're actually nearly at the end of our allotted hour here, but I had a suspicion that we might be a bit squeezed for time with the Q&A. So fortunately, our trio of presenters have generously said their diaries can stay open for a little bit longer to run through some of the questions, because we have had a lot of discussion and a lot of questions come in. So I'm going to try to run through these based on the number of upvotes. So if there's a question in there that you do really want answered, give it an arrow upwards. The more votes you get, the more likely it is that I'm going to put it to our panel here, because we'll try and run through these as rapidly as possible, conscious that your diaries, probably like ours, pretty jam-packed. So first question here from Vicky, I'll try and summarize it. What do we think the impact will be on junior roles in payroll, where the AI agents are doing some more of the mundane tasks? What impact will this have on learning, development and education of people coming into the profession? And then we've had some follow-up questions about how will this impact sort of what the payroll profession looks like in 5 years' time? Will we still have enough people in the profession? Will they be the right education level? I want to throw that open to Adrian in the first instance. Sorry, Adrian. I'm going to put you on the spot.
It's fine. No, it's absolutely fine. I think I want to come back to the analogy that I gave earlier in regards to the milestone moments that we've seen within the payroll profession, like I said, from the abacus to the calculators, software, etc. And I would argue that we haven't seen a decrease in the number of payroll professionals in the workplace because of those milestone moments and those evolutions that we've seen within the profession. If anything, we've seen more of a broadening as to what payroll professions are capable of doing within the workforce. And I think this will just enable that scope to be even broader for payroll professionals, and give them the freedom to be more strategic and not be just bogged down by the mundane, day-to-day repetitive tasks and things that really consume their time that AI can actually support them with. So if anything, I think we're at a moment in time whereby we have an opportunity to really evolve what this profession looks like and take it to a whole new level.
Completely agreed, Adrian. Just on that, most of the time when I speak to candidates about what's frustrating about their jobs, or what would they like to improve, it's the time element of that. So as a co-pilot, if they can support you to release you to be able to do the financial well-being, that partnering piece, which is so integral to payroll professionals, it's going to be a huge positive. And look, from a recruiting point of view and the volume of opportunities that we're working on, the new clients that are coming to us to help with support, there's been no downturn in the number of opportunities that we're working on at all.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Let's see how we do with this one. So Chris asks, are there any recommended AI tools that we can use to analyze pay data outside of my payroll software provider? I don't know whether at a point whether we could recommend anything now, Julie.
So yeah. So okay, Power BI would be a great place to start, where you can extract data from any type of system and start doing some kind of horizontal and vertical analysis. If you want to connect with me direct, we can have an offline conversation. I'm more than happy to kind of deep dive into what challenges you've got, and I'll be able to kind of point you in the right directions. Feel free just to either reach out to me on LinkedIn or at jlally@ciphr.com, and I'll help you with that, Chris.
Thanks, Julie. That's very generous of you.
Could I ask, just for the last one, could we answer Jason's question about AI in payroll software? I think that's quite an interesting one.
So Jason asks, would the inclusion of AI in payroll software make organizations more or less likely to consider it? What's the responsibility on providers to be honest about their claims of AI in their product?
Okay, can I take that one, please? As a software provider, and payroll professional? It's a great question, Jason. I'm glad you've asked it. Would it be, okay, the first part of the question then, would it make organisations more or less likely to consider it? It will depend how the vendor has built the functionality. Because if you build it in a way that you choose whether you switch it on or not, it makes no difference negatively to a decision. However, it would make, in what we're seeing in tenders and what we're being asked for now in the open, you know, the payroll professionals that are actively out there looking for software now, it is to evidence AI in payroll. It's becoming a daily ask now. With regard to the responsibility, I love this bit, on payroll providers to be honest about their claims, 100%. You should never claim that you have something in your product if you don't. What I would encourage people, if you are out to market and you're interested in AI, then ask your vendors that you're looking at, that you're evaluating, if they can share with you what their product roadmaps are. Ask for a conversation with the product team that are working on AI. That way, that should give you some reassurances that it's a very real thing for that particular vendor.
And I think just to add to that, Julie, sorry, Adrian, is also look out for the kind of marketing materials and events like this that the vendor does. So this is an event hosted by us at Ciphr. We're not talking about any AI products we might have in development because we're not ready to talk about that yet. So we're not showing you anything that might be speculative or mislabeled or anything like that. We're being really transparent and open and focused on the discussions and the use cases rather than trying to market something that maybe isn't ready.
Yeah, I was just going to add to what Julie was saying. I'm conscious of time because I know we've got to close now, but I'd say that a part of the responsibility is also on the individual who's procuring as well. So typically the payroll professional, and I'd encourage you to, one, continue to educate yourself, you know, using channels like this, like what you've experienced today. Two, it's important that we ask the right questions when it comes to, you know, going through that procurement activity with the vendor, and those questions are, you know, quite provocative in giving examples as to how that AI would respond or show up within the solution. But I'd also used scenario-based demonstrations as well, so that you can see AI in real life and actually see whether what's being promoted and marketed is marrying up with what actually exists within the solution.
There's a few questions, Adrian, that are asking the same thing. Will CIPP be offering an AI and robotics module as a standalone course?
I wouldn't necessarily confirm yes to that specific description, but yes, in that we will continue to expand our educational offerings to do with AI and payroll robotics. The first key milestone was the qualification being the payroll management diploma, so that you can get your level 5 qualification and it equip professionals with all things AI.
Are there any other?
Sorry, I want to raise this question from Emma. Are there any implications to the GDPR if you're using AI?
Because it's embedded within the application and it's, you know, just some kind of science tooling that we're using, no. We're not taking the data outside of the payroll solution via AI, so, or into the World Wide Web, so no.
Great, thank you. I think it's always worth, just if you are, you know, thinking about using an AI product, to check that its processing parameters, what its security policy is, and be really clear on that before you put in any, definitely before you put any live data in. And your organization might be in the process of setting up some wider governance rules about which AI tools are safe to use and which aren't. So that might be a wider conversation to have. We actually had a lot of discussion around security, with one here from Vicky asking about, should we be additionally worried about AI tools being vulnerable to cybersecurity attacks are the security vulnerabilities any greater than in the payroll software we already use, for example?
Any AI that you use in your payroll system will go through the exact same external penetration testing as the rest of the payroll software. Well, it does for us. Okay, so I wouldn't personally expect that to be creating additional opportunities of a cyber attack, because the pen testing would be exactly the same. Can't speak for everybody because I genuinely don't know how other organisations are testing any new features that they're introducing that are developed with AI.
Okay, thanks, Julie.
Oh, great questions, aren't they?
Yeah,
really good.
Yeah.
Questions. I'm just trying to choose which are my favourites before we try to wrap up, but there's just so many. There's lots of people asking for recommendations of specific AI tools that you use, that anybody uses beyond ChatGPT, for example. So within Ciphr, we've been steered towards using Microsoft Copilot, particularly because of security considerations. So that is a protected environment with any information loaded into it does not go into the World Wide Web. So that gives us some level of confidence that if we were to say put in data analysis, then that would not go elsewhere. Are there any tools that anyone else is using that they would like to recommend, whether that's related to payroll or either just like for productivity hacks in general, whether that's like meeting summaries, writing communications or anything like that?
I use it all. I use it all. I do Copilot for some stuff. I do ChatGPT for other stuff. We've got our own in-house AI tools, so Tony, etc. So yeah, I try it all. Well, occasionally I'll do a compete off. So I'll ask the same question of a piece of, it might be, I don't know, if I'm writing an article and I just want it to sound better than I can do, which is normally Catherine's team's job, who just make everything I write sound magic. But yeah, I can put that into 2 different AI platforms and just see which one comes up with. But they never come back the same, by the way. They never come back identical.
See, that's interesting.
Yeah, so Copilot and Chat come back different. Yeah.
And the main thing with using these tools is the more you use them and the more sophisticated your prompts are, the more it will start to give you responses which are in tune with what you want. But each of them does draw from a different database. So some of them, like ChatGPT, for example, its information is a couple of years old. It doesn't draw from the live web like Perplexity does. So if you were looking for answers around payroll legislation, for example, ChatGPT is not your friend there. Your friend is government website, CIPP, like trusted news sources. It is not ChatGPT. And that is where we'll see that payroll expertise and knowledge will not be eroded, because AI will not be able to replace that, and certainly won't be able to keep pace with all the changes the government keep throwing at us when it comes to payroll legislation and regulations. I understand that we've got a lot of questions left, but we have run out of time. So thank you very much to everyone who sent questions in. If you want to get in touch with any of our presenters, you can find them on LinkedIn, or if you want to send any feedback through to the marketing team here, you can reach us at marketing@ciphr.com. Adrian, can you just tell us a little bit more about that payroll diploma that you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, to help to support equipping the payroll profession, we've released the Payroll Management Diploma. It covers and irrespective as to whether you want to go down the leadership route or whether you just want to expand your skills as a payroll professional, this diploma will support you with that. But like I said, one of the key modules that are within this diploma, it's all about AI and payroll robotics and how it shows up in the real world, how it will show up within your payroll provision, and how you may be able to adopt it and utilize it to strengthen your payroll infrastructure. So the QR code is on the screen if you want to scan it there, or just jump on the CIPP website. We still have a handful of spaces available for the first enrollment for this diploma. So yeah, hopefully I'll see you on it, and you'll be able to see the impact that will have for you in how you develop your career further.
Thank you, Adrian. And Gemma, you've got some news from Portfolio Group you'd love to share.
Yes, please. So we will be, as we do every year, launching our the biggest and most comprehensive payroll salary survey at the ACE Awards in October. But then now is the time where we start collating all of our data, and there's a big piece and lots of questions around AI. So there will be a link in the interaction bits, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right now.
If not, head to our website. But yeah, it's going to be huge this year, and AI is going to be a big part of it. So if you can all take part, that'd be amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Gemma. I just want to say thank you to all of our presenters for joining us this afternoon. I know you've all worked really hard behind the scenes, brushing up on all your AI knowledge and fitting all the bits together. So thank you for all your hard work today. Thanks to everyone who attended, for sending in your questions and for taking part in a really vibrant chat. If you have any feedback about today's session, we would love to hear it. So either drop a message in the chat, or you'll see an exit survey when this webinar ends. You can give us a rating, you can give us some feedback about future sessions, and also let us know what you might want us to cover in the future. You can also use that opportunity to opt in to find out more about any of Ciphyr's solutions if you would like, or you can email us at info@ciphr.com. So thanks, everyone. We hope you have a great rest of your day. Look out for the recording landing in your inbox soon, and we hope to see you at another webinar again. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.